And hopefully it doesn't get, because if you weld them there, if you don't primer it or paint it, then it's going to start rusting there. Like here, we don't have a rust issue so much, but in coastal areas we might have that issue. But your foundation is quite important to have it installed properly. And to know what is the distance between the rail and your base plate, like I said earlier. And that will also depend on what type of rack you use. But as a ballpark, it's either from 49 to 53 mils. That's more or less the differences. But it's in the manual. RTFM. You know what it means?
Yeah.
Please read the manual in a polite way. Alright, so how you can fit or install a base plate without even having concrete there. Because now, if you do an installation, you need to plan it over 2 days almost. Because the first day you go there, you dig your hole, and you do your concrete, and you put your base in there, you put your concrete. Now you've got to wait a week or two, or a day, or well, at least a day or two, for the concrete to settle. Then you can go back and now mount your motor. So you basically use 2 days, maybe 3 hours, 5 hours for the first section. The second day you spend another 5 hours to do it. So that's basically 2 days out of your week. But now you can do it differently. You can say, okay, we'll dig the hole, and we'll compact it, and we'll make sure that our depth is good. Then the base plate that you weld, there's little legs that you get with the base plate that you can secure to the bottom of the base. And that will then sit on top of the ground that you've now compacted. Then you take flat bar, and underneath that base plate, you take the flat bar with the correct spacing from your base plate to the rail, you weld that to your rail on both sides of the base plate. Now, this is actually perfect. This is secure for you now to do this and fit your motor. And once you've got your motor fit, just before you finish, you're almost done your whole installation. Now you can pour your concrete. But you can finish your installation. You can tell the client, there's your concrete is there. Every day for the next week, just give it some water so it can go stronger. But you can do your installation within 1 day now by doing this. Welding your base with a flat bar to your rail, because that's a proper secure, let's say, securing to the ground basically. And obviously your legs that sit on top of the ground, and your concrete obviously it's not cured yet, but this will be strong enough for you to finish your installation. You don't have to go back the next day. You can finish it. Okay. And then also because we want the base to be the same height as your rail, the bottom of the rail. That's how you know. If your rail is this height, then your base needs to be this height. Obviously with that 15 mil gap or whatever the gap between the rack and pinion should be, but your base should not be lower or higher. It can be a little bit, because then you can just lift the motor, but you don't want the motor to lift too much, because then it's not installed according to spec. So if you do this, then you know your base is the same level as your rail, and that's according to specifications. Okay, good. So there's your little legs that you can weld on, and there's your flat bar that you weld onto the rail to make it more secure. And then, yes.
So your 10 to 15 mm gate have to be between that base plate and the motor.
The height of the motor to the base plate. Yeah, it's 5 minimum. And in this manual, or this special that we say 5 to 7, you can make it up to 15 or 12, So I normally go 12, I lift it 15, because I don't use the spider. And then after that, I'll just drop it to 12.
So those 3 bolts are the ones which will be securing the
only those 3 bolts. So those 3 bolts are the only ones. So it's 2 on the left-hand side and 1 on the right-hand side. That's only 2 bolts that secure the motor, the gearbox basically, the motor, to the base plate. Okay. I've brought another motor here that we can have a look at. Maybe who asked about the oil? Not putting in the wrong hole.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. Or the oil. I'll show you here where to put it and where not to put it. Okay. So let's have a look at the video doing new concrete.
The base plate must be positioned flush with the driveway entrance and not protrude into the driveway where a car could hit it. Don't mount the operator too close to the side of a gate support post or pillar,
80
as you
volts.
need some space on the side of the operator to access the mounting studs. If you're going to fit a theft-resistant cage, also bear in mind the space required for this. The base plate can be either bolted down onto an existing concrete plinth or concreted into position. Assemble the base plate, fitting the concrete anchor tabs where necessary, and ensure that the studs are thoroughly tightened. The gearbox must be positioned so that when it stands 5 mm off the base plate and the rack is 3 mm above the pinion, the rack can be fixed to the bottom of the gate. Now prepare a hole for the foundation of approximately 400 mm square by 300 mm deep.
That's important.
Check what type of soil you have. If it's loose sandy soil, you may need to make a larger foundation. A good tip when using a concrete foundation is to weld the base plate to the track using short lengths of angle iron. This will allow you to complete the installation of the operator, commission the unit, and only then finish off by throwing the concrete plinth. Route your cables through the cable entry hole, allowing at least 400 mm to protrude above the base plate.
Okay. So hopefully, if you get to an old installation, that the original installer or the first installer did it correctly. Because if the base is not correct or there's some issues, then it might be difficult to get even wiring. Sometimes they don't do conduit, and then if there's a wire broke, now you have to do new wiring, but you can't because there's no way for you to get into the motor. Then you start drilling holes into the side of the motor. It just becomes messy. Okay, or there's maybe not even a 5mm gap, so you can't even get wire between the base and the motor because the installer didn't use a 5mm gap. Then you've got to start drilling holes into the gearbox. So yeah, hopefully it was done according to specifications. Then any work afterwards should not be so difficult to do it. Okay. Then routing your cables. That video said 400. Yes. So let's make it not in 300 cm. So if you want to make sure if you bring in new cables, we like the conduit to come out 3 cm, 30 mils above the bottom of your base plate. So it must just sit above the base plate, 3 cm above it. The hole, there is a hole for the conduit, to go through. So it's not because you only say I've got a 5mm gap between the motor and the gearbox and the plate. But when the conduit goes up, there's a cavity in it, so you can have a 3 cm or 30mm conduit going up. Why do we want that? For water not going into the pipe, So just, you can make it a little bit higher, but obviously not too high so it goes too much higher into the motor. But don't make it flush because then any water spillage can go into your cabling. And your conduit, and over a while, it's going to start rotting your cables that's in the conduit. Okay, so make it not less than 300 cm. Your power cable could be a little bit less, but yeah, let's make it 3 cm. That you know that you can cut your cable, then you can mount your gearbox. You have a long enough cable to work on. Because if the cables are short, now you've got to start joining cables, just makes your life more difficult. Okay, routing the cables, and you can see there can at least 3 20mm conduits can actually fit in a hole in the base plate. Okay, or maybe one 32mm or two 32mm should fit in. Good.
Question
Yes.
Yes, in case the water goes into the conduits, what defects can...
Okay, I say maybe a little bit more, 10 to 12 mils. Okay. But it's not carved in stone, but don't make it less than 5, at least. Okay, you can see over here, here's my power cable. I couldn't bring it underneath because this motor is too close to the gearbox, up to the base. So this is actually not done. So although this is close to 5, this cap tire, I couldn't bring it underneath this base and the gearbox to bring up. So that's why I had to bring it from the side. It was even pinching this cable. This one, yeah, was pinching this cable
onto the foundation plate. There are two important points to note. First, we want the gearbox raised above the foundation plate. This gives us the opportunity to either raise or lower it in the future should the need arise. When does this need arise? Well, when the gate is in service, and particularly in a high volume site with the gate going backwards and forwards a lot of times, the wheels will start to wear and the gate and the rack with it will start to drop. And as the rack starts to drop on the pinion, it takes up the all-important 3mm gap that we want, even to the point where the rack starts to press down onto the pinion and apply undue load to the system. By having the gearbox raised at the time of installation, when this situation occurs, we can lower the gearbox and then reintroduce the 3mm gap between the rack and the pinion. The second important point about mounting the gearbox is that the gearbox mount must be clamped between a nut and washer underneath, then a washer above, spring washer, and then your second nut to fasten the whole assembly together. Proceed with the mounting of the gearbox. We start with our first layer of nuts, and we want the nuts to be spaced above the foundation plate with approximately 7mm between the base plate and the underside of the nut. We then fit our first layer of washers onto the standoffs. We pick up the gearbox, drop it onto the standoffs, then fit the washer above the mount, the spring washer, screw the nut onto the standoff and screw it down until it's finger tight at this early stage in the installation. While we're mounting the gearbox, don't forget the earth lead, which connects to the controller and also to the charger. Just unravel the lead, slip it through this gully in the gearbox just underneath the origin switch. Slip on the washer first, then slip on the lug, the spring washer, then screw on the nut onto the standoff. Rotate the lug around so it sticks out the back, and then keep on screwing down the nut until finger tight.
Okay.
Where can we get videos or
D-series motors, being a D2, D5 CP80, the old one, D5 Evo, D5 Smart, D10 Smart, even the old D10s, the non-smarts, and even our D20. So this key is universal to all our D-series motors. Key 198.
198.
198, yes, yeah. Okay. So that's a key, you need to turn it to 12 o'clock, so it should be on 3 o'clock position or horizontal. You turn it to 12 o'clock or vertical. Then it will release this little cam inside. You won't be able to see it, but then it will disengage, or you will be able to open and close this to disengage the gearbox. Because as you turn it clockwise, it pushes out a key, and that key then loses connection between there's a gear inside with the motor, and then obviously you can freely move the gate. And obviously anti-clockwise will then re-engage that key into the gearbox. Someone's asking a question? No.
I want to ask a question.
Okay.
That key, the
Applications. And you get nylon or razrack for less or light duty, or maybe not so secure. Because if I want to break into someone's premises, and I've got 5 buddies or 5 friends, if you on this razrack or nylon rack, if someone pulls 5 people at one point, say 1, 2, 3, pull, we can maybe strip this nylon or razrack because it's type of plastic or carbon. And maybe over a period of 10 years or 5 years, the sun is hitting this gate, and that nylon rack and razrack starts getting brittle. You know, so it can fail. The teeth can break off, and then if someone pulls on it, 5 people, you can strip basically the teeth off. Not the pinion, because that's obviously metal, so that won't break normally. Just normally your raz or nylon rack. So even if my house, it's not heavy duty, it opens 10 times a day, even if not less. But I will still prefer steel rack. It's more secure. It won't fade over. The sun can't damage it. Yes, it can maybe rust, but then you should have make sure that you prime it or you paint it before it starts rusting. They bring little petrol. They throw it on the pinion here and set it alight, and it melts. And then I just have to open your gate. Okay, I'm a little bit fat, but you know. So they just burn that section there, and then they can end your premises. But steel rack, steel's not going to melt, well, 1,000 degrees, which they're not going to get from normal petrol. Hopefully not. So steel rack for me is still the best. Light duty, heavy duty, unsecure place, secure place. For me, steel rack, yes, it's more work. You've got to weld it. It's a lot more effort, but for me, it's the safest. Because remember, your gate is your first line of defense. They get into your yard, now they can steal your motor, they can steal your car, they can get into your house. So you've got to prevent them from lifting your gate by not with the anti-lifts. And you've got to prevent them from being able to move your gate open by maybe setting alight your rack, because it's nylon or raz rack. So for me, if you want to secure, so this is secure, yes, if they strip it or burn it. So steel is definitely the better way for me. And it's not, I think there's a 20 rand difference in the kit price between a steel rack kit that we give you 2 lengths, so it's 2 meters, which is 4 meters in all total. There's like 20 rand difference between steel and nylon rack. So it's not a money saving that you're using for nylon rack. You know? Yes, it's more work. Yes.
What did this say that the motor is for?
Rack. Because you see, there's my pots or my little angle irons, but there's our 3 mil gap, which is, like I said, very important to have a proper insulation. Then we prefer you having a 16 mil round bar. Okay, you can use angle iron if it's light duty, like in a house. It's not so much wrong to have angle iron, you know, facing upwards, and then your wheels can sit on top. You know, it just causes more friction. It's a little bit more noisy. There's more wear and tear on the wheels. Yes, you also got to make sure now you buy the right wheels for the right rail you're using. Because we've got round-shaped wheels, or we call it U-shape or V-shape. V-shape is for your angle irons, and your round is for your round bar. So make sure when you do quote a client or you want to buy wheels for your gate that you have a look and see what rails it's going to run on. That will be on a V-shape angle line, then you're going to create more friction. So in a normal gate, only 5 years time you're going to start having issues maybe. But you know, if you want to do it properly, make sure that the wheels matches the rail, and obviously have it properly serviced and maintained, especially the wheels, because that's a moving part. There's ground going in there, so that's maybe most of the things needs maintenance. The motor so much doesn't need maintenance, like oiling it, but the wheels needs to be checked once or twice a year, especially if you've got a lot of ground and there's a lot of flooding or water going towards your gate. You know, just check that on farm areas. And then we recommend you using a 16 round ball round bar. Okay, not less than 16. You can get 12, but if you put 40 mil wheels on, which I won't suggest, then you can go 12 mil. But we go 80 mil wheels minimum, preferably, with a 16 mil round bar.
How many wheels?
2 wheels, 80 mils. Diameter is 80 millimeters.
1/8.
Sorry?
1/8.
80.
80.
Yeah, 80 millimeters. You get 60 mils, you get 40 mils. I'm not sure if it's that popular to sell. Yeah, so it's only 80.
60, 80, maybe 100.
Yeah, so I won't go less than 80. 60 mils, I would say, it's not worth it. I would rather go 80 mils. Good. And then the heavier the gate, the larger the diameter of the wheels should be. So if it's a one-ton gate, you maybe want to put 100 mil wheels or 120 mil wheels. Yes, it's a lot more work involving fitting 100 or 120 mil wheels onto a gate, and they are obviously quite expensive versus what an 80 mil wheel will cost. But I've seen a day and night difference between gates that was very difficult to open. Nothing was pinching it, the gap was perfect, the installation was done properly. But a 20mm rail will be better if you go 120mm wheel, then you need to go 20mm rail, which is a little bit expensive, I must say, and not so common to get, but you can get it. So I would say 16 can go up to 100mm, and obviously 80mm wheel can go to 16mm, but if you go to 120, then we prefer you having a 20mm rail. I would even say if you go 100, go also 20mm, if you can. Okay. Mass, the gate is not more than 500. You can do a V profile. So you can see it's not round. So there's your round bar connected to the ground. So this is your ground level. So now you can use a round bar in the V shape. That's not wrong because it's light duty and it's for a house maybe and it's less than 500 kgs. If you go to a heavier gate with high volume, meaning if I have to do installation, I would use this setup. Doesn't matter the size of the gate, I will use this installation. Round bar with round shaped wheels or the U-shaped wheels. It just creates less friction for me. But this is not wrong to do it. Yes.
I think we are missing these
Yes.
slides.
Yes. So your manuals won't be exact to what's on the side.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure that you need to make your own notes to keep
Yes.
you awake.
Okay.
Because I can be very boring. Okay.
Wat
Yes.
ons ook al gekry het op die V-shape, né? As hy die dinge sit, hy knyp vas.
Yes,
Begin
it
vast
pinches
knyp.
it, yeah. Yeah,
Die
so,
handbaar is
yes.
baie beter.
so what he's saying is with V-shape, if your wheel starts over, let's always high volume or over a period of time, obviously there's now a little bit of friction, well there's friction, so obviously it starts wearing out either the rail or the wheels, and it starts your optimum operations becomes less because now there's more friction and it starts actually biting into the rail. So your gate becomes more difficult to open and that means your motor starts struggling. I've seen rails, the round bar, I'll get you now, I've seen installation where the round bar, there's like, it's grooved on the side because it's not round anymore, it's like almost square on top because of the wheels eating into it. That obviously happens over a period of 10 years, you know, or if it's a school or place that opens 100 times or 200 times a day, obviously versus a house that only opens 5 times a day or 10 times, there's a lot more wear and tear on something that's high volume. That's why we prefer round bar. Yes?
Well, my question is I'm still novice when it comes to this technical stuff, so I just needed to know, how do you actually weigh the size of a gate in terms of the weight?
So that you can't tell unless you've got a scale and you've got someone to help you and you put it in the middle and you just try to balance it. So it's almost impossible because you've got brackets to hold it. Sorry?
So it's mostly assuming the size that it might be.
This will tell you. Because even I said, we say up to 500 kgs. But a 200 kg, a gate that's physically, the steel that was bought to manufacture the gate was only 200 kgs. That gate, if it's not properly installed, the wheels are seized, it's going to feel heavy. So this will tell you that gate is in the ballpark of a D5 Evo. Because if it goes up more than 30 kgf starting and 17 running, you know, okay, we need to get a stronger motor. Or we need to check, there's something wrong with this gate, because this gate is no way it should be this difficult, so there's something wrong with the gate. So to weigh a gate is going to be very difficult. Unless you can uninstall it, take it off its rails and put it on the floor and weigh it, you know. But I mean, then you need to go to like, to these, where they weigh bridges. But I mean, who's going to do that? You know? So that's the only way you can physically weigh a gate. But your best tool will be to use this. Because this will tell you, not so much what the gate weighs, but what effort needs to be done. And that tells you it's within spec or not of that particular motor that you're thinking of. Yes?
The higher in diameter becomes of the
Wheel.
I assume that it would be like the higher the gates would be from the rail or the ground to wherever the wheel ends. So how do we manage that space if, let's say, it's 100 mm?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So a lot of guys, if you start going 120 more wheels, they start floating. They actually submerge the wheel in the bottom gate, but that's a lot of work. If you can't do it, then I just need to add a plate or something at the bottom. So let me draw it. So just excuse, I'm not an artist. So this is now the gate. Okay. And here you've got your gate bracket. And there's the center of the gate, and your wheel is now obviously here. Okay? That's 80 mils. But now, so this is 80 mils, so this is the ground, obviously. Okay, so note your dogs, if it's one, this is a very small dog, won't be able to get through here. Because this is about, this is a lot different. If you've got bigger wheels, then you might have an issue because now your bracket is, but now your wheels are bigger, you know. So now this gap is a lot bigger. So now you can just, so what I've done my place actually, I've actually welded flat bar here, and I've put it there, and I've welded flat bar, and I've put something like this. You know, so it's still low to the ground. But if you really want to do it properly, but it's a lot more work, you float, you build the wheels. When you manufacture the gate, you build the wheels into the gate. So this is obviously this is the frame of the gate. Let me do this. This is maybe 100 mils, like a square tube. So a lot of guys will actually build the wheels inside the gate. So you only see a little part, you know. So obviously there's a hinge now there that's holding it, you know, something like that. So you only see the bottom half of the gate. You only see half of the wheel. But that's because that means I've sunk it into the frame.
Yes, and then I'm assuming that only a motor installed around the gate.
Yes. So this is very nice. This looks very, very, very nice. But it's quite a lot of work as a manufacturer to do this.
And maintenance issues.
Yes, because now this thing seizes up
Take off the gate.
to get this wheel out, and it seizes it up. Then you almost cut open, and then you need to weld back. So it's definitely a lot of maintenance. But this looks very nice, I must say, it looks good. I've seen a gate, looks like it's on low profile wheels. it's just there's about this gap between the ground and the gate. It looks very nice, but maintenance job, it's hard.
With aluminium, some aluminium material that make doors, we don't have to strap.
Yeah, just to prevent dogs from getting, to minimize that gap.
Yeah, because they allow that gap in between aluminium profile. That's important.
Yeah, because you just want to stop that gap from stray dogs or getting into your premise, because now what type of wheels and on what type of duty cycle of a motor. So if you've got heavy duty, let's say up to 600 kg gate, we can have, let's say, 80 mm wheel. All right. If you go on a high duty, you want to go on the same size gate, you want to go maybe 120 mm. So it's still the same gate, but it's moving a lot more because it's high duty versus low duty. So the same size gate, because it's high duty, you want to maybe go 120 mm wheels. All right.
High duty meaning
it's more movement. So more movement is more friction, more wear and tear, and more work the motor's got to do. So you'll be amazed. Like I said, there's a day-night difference between. Okay, doesn't matter size of the gate. Where do I put my wheels? Do I put them here or here? How do I measure it? So the best way is, and I also didn't know it up to a couple of years back when I actually read a manual, and I actually like reading manuals, but sometimes you don't. So the best what you do is you measure the length of the gate, 10 meters, and you divide that into 7, and you get a measurement, and that's how far you should have it. So let's say what is 10 divided by 7? 1.3, give and take. So it's 1.3 meters from either side of the gate. 1.4.
Yeah.
That's where you put it. You take the length of the gate, divide it by 7, you get a measurement, and that's where you should put your wheel. Okay. If you know, you want to be precise.
So as hy 6 meter is gedeeld deur 7, dan is waar jy
It's less than 0.9 give and take.
Ja.
Or whatever the
Baie niks in.
Yes. Yeah, so I've done a couple installations, and so you're always more or less right. You know, by thumbs-up, by luck, you are almost like getting to the same measurement. But if you really want to be precise, over the install, because if it jumps over, it can fall into you, on your child, on your car, fall on the motor's broken. So I know there's quite a few lawsuits where gate, you hear sometimes on the news, a gate has fallen onto a child or onto a person. You can break you can die, or you can break your back and you're paralyzed.
Yeah,
So that happened because that gate, for whatever reason, sorry, I'll be interrupted. Well, for whatever reason, something happened. That gate fell over. Why? Maybe the catch bracket wasn't installed properly, and it got loose and it fell over. You know, or maybe the end stop wasn't properly and then it fell over. So there must be a reason for that to have happened. Unless a car bumped it and then it fell over. Well, then it's a freak accident. Or it could be someone didn't install it properly, didn't weld it properly. So the catch bracket is properly, its height is more than 40, but the welding was not up to par, and then after a year or 2 or 3, whatever, it come off, it fell off, and then
properly.
yes.
The rack must be mounted, centered on the pinion, with a 2 to 3 millimeter gap between the teeth of the pinion and the teeth of the rack along its entire length.
Okay.
To assist in achieving the correct tooth gap, our installation hint is to raise the operator by an additional 3 millimeters,
Okay.
approximately 3 turns of the nut. Put the operator into manual override so that the pinion can be turned by hand. We do this by rotating the thumb wheel fully clockwise until the gearbox disengages. Do not confuse this with which way the gate opens or closes. Slide the gate fully to the left. Place the first piece of RAS on top of the pinion as shown. Level the piece properly and clamp the right-hand end against the side of the gate. Screw a fastener into the first vertical slot and make sure it goes into the middle of the slot to allow for later adjustment.
Vertical slot, no?
Join the second piece of rack onto the first. The rack is welded into position using the small angle support brackets provided with the rack. Allow for support bracket every 300 millimeters. When joining 2 pieces of the rack together, notice how we clamp a short piece of rack across the join to keep the correct tooth spacing and ensure a reliable and quiet running gate. Check that the rack runs smoothly on the pinion along its entire length by manually sliding the gate open and closed. Finally, make sure the operator nuts are tight and seal the conduit and knockout holes with silicone to reduce the ingress of ants into the operator.
Okay. Okay. Everybody still with me?
Yes.
Can I?
Yes.
From the gate, let's say you connect the leg. How many, like how much you